So I'm going to give you a little personal history here. Um, I grew up on an island in Washington State and basically lived in Seattle for the most part from uh, college through 2012 or beginning 2012. Um, so I'm a Northwesterner, hence the coffee addiction. And as someone from the Northwest, kind of used to the rain. Seattle gets a bit of bad rap for weather, but it is a lot of cloudy days, a lot of drizzle, not a lot of heavy downpours, but lots of drizzle. I moved to California in February 2012 to basically work for the band I do now. And that was about the start of the drought. Um, so for the last 5 years in California, it's Southern California has basically been drought conditions. Kind of gotten used to it. Used to basically being dry, kind of hot all the damn time, not much variation in weather. Uh, Sorry. As you guys are well aware, that has sort of changed this last month. We are now in, I guess, what's considered a normal winter for California. Not normal for me, but normal for California. In the last 4 or 5 weeks, uh, northern California, basically from about Bay Area north, is out of drought conditions. Um, I don't think we're necessarily back to our the ground. I think the groundwater level is still low, but the reservoirs are filled back up. Um, Southern California, pretty much aside from like L.A. County, seems to be out of extreme conditions. I looked at the map today, and um, L.A. is still in the more extreme conditions, but the rest of Southern California seems to be climbing out that hole, the drought hole, so to speak. As I said, I think the groundwater water table is still low for the whole state, but um, most reservoirs are filled. If you walk outside, everything's pretty green, which is unusual and very very nice. That being said, I'm really over the rain. I wish it would. I kind of want to. I want to be hot again. Looking forward to summer. I'm sorry with the wine there. I should be happy with the rain. Um, Anyways, the past few weeks have it's been pretty nuts down here. If you follow my blog at all, sorry, vlog, I'm gonna call it vlog. Um, you probably heard me mention a few times that there's a tree on my property moving. You've probably seen a little bit of footage of it. Um, Basically, where I live, I'm on the back half of a piece of property. So my neighbors and I split the property. I'm in a basically kind of a sculptor's cabin studio. The back half, they have a house out front, and rather than walk across their drive or their front yard to go to park my car, I have a path that kind of runs along the hillside north side of the property out to where I park. That crosses through this neighbor's property through an easement, which is also where our water line comes in. Now, there's a tree just on my neighbor's side of the property that is slowly moving its way downhill. Um, at this point, I think we're probably about 4 or 5 feet downhill. The reason I tell us is it is pulling the water line with it. I'm not sure if it's got if the water line has got wrapped up in a root or not, or if it's just being pinched by a branch, but it is basically pulled out of the hillside. I talked to my landlord about this a couple weeks ago during the last storm when I noticed that it was no longer underground and rather exposed. And they came by and looked at it, and it was supposed we have somebody come by and rerun it, rebury the line. That hasn't happened yet. I'm really hoping they're not waiting for the point of the tree growing and taking the water main out before they do it, because then I'll probably be without water for a few days, which would really suck. But it's gonna happen. That tree is also pretty much dead in line with the power line, so when it goes, it's going to take out the plumbing here and the power for the block, and the internet, which is the part that I'll miss the most. Um, but it's on its way. The hillside's pretty loose here. On this property though, that's like the only thing that I've seen that's too bad. A couple other trees, little smaller trees, seem to be going over, but nothing too major. At least not compared to that. Around the corner, we had a really huge oak tree that went over during the last storm about 2 weeks ago, and that was probably several hundred years old. As I believe somebody told me it was a protected tree, as in you couldn't take it down unless the weather did it, which now the weather has. But that one went over, and then up the hill we had a bunch of little smaller trees and branches go over yesterday. When I was driving out last night, I actually had to do some dodging to get around them because they were kind of hopping up left and right. The road that runs parallel to the main drag where I live yesterday was a pretty sizable river. I mentioned that in yesterday's post. About 3 or 4 inches of just of water going across about 30 or 40 feet of road. It's a lot of rain here. I think as somebody had mentioned on one of the weather reports that basically LA is like a concrete jungle. I think the county is 4,700 square miles. I believe I read that online. Correct me if I'm wrong. I would probably speculate 1,000 that's probably paved between houses and roads. Maybe even more than that. There are a couple large parks here, but it's a lot of concrete. And the ground's not that absorbent now. So you get 4 or 5 inches of rain, and it goes pretty much everywhere on the surface really quick. I've also heard a few people mention especially in last storm. Some of my more angry friends online in other states that our lack of infrastructure in California is to blame for the water issues, and we should have more reservoirs built and all that nonsense. And I just have to point out that when you get 3 or 4 inches of rain, we're talking like millions of gallons in a day. There aren't enough reservoirs built in LA County to handle that. They're building a new one down in a kind of forest lawn area, and that's still it's tiny. Like there's just not that much space to hold this much water this quickly. So quit bitching about the runoff. It's just gonna happen. But anyway, so like the long story short, which is 8 minutes in, which would be too late. The weather the last couple weeks has been shit. Looking at the weather report coming up for next week, I think we're getting kind of past it. Looks like we got a little more rain, but nothing nearly as what we had. I think there's no storm rolling in, but it's gonna hit more north, which seems to have a little better way of handling it than we do down south. So I'm pretty happy about that because, like I said, I'm over the shit weather, which is also more problematic when I want to get a film. Really, the only camera I have that's waterproof at this point is my GoPro for filming video, and that thing's handy for doing time lapses. But I really like the footage on it. I'm not really crazy about the ultra wide angle thing. My Pentax, my 645Z is basically waterproof, but it just does shit video. I've tried shooting with it, and the 1080 just looks horrible on it. I mean, just really, really bad quality. I seem to remember like reading some or watching some videos, reviews on that before it came out, because people were pretty excited about how the video quality would look on the medium format sensor and thought it'd be great. And then you look at it, you're like, nah, it's shit. There's way too much line skipping. Just incredibly uninspiring footage. I've tried shooting with it 3 or 4 times. And every time I do, I just I want to put it back down. I'd rather shoot with my phone. I'd rather shoot with my old iPhone actually than that thing. So anyway, but basically what I'm saying is I have not much options for shooting if it's raining. I also can't go fly my drone. And I kind of feel like I'm just getting a handle on how to fly the thing properly and how to shoot with it. I've been doing some more color grading practice, going through my old footage I shot. And I think I've got yeah, so we got a bit of handle. As I start to look a little bit better, look more realistic. I still have to resist the urge to not overdo things with color when it comes to grading on video. I really kind of feel like I'm in that sort of stage that I was when I first started using Lightroom and in Photoshop 8 some odd years ago whenever I started shooting, and that there's a temptation to really go too far. And you really go, oh, it looks great. It's like people do HDR shots when they first start. You first figure out how to do that thing, and you do a bunch of them, and you're like, oh, this is amazing. And you look at it a month later, you're like, wow, that looks like shit. I still feel like I'm in that way with video, and I'll get like a good basic correction going on, and then I'll start trying to make it look kind of cool. And I think the making it look cool part, I'm going too far. So I've been going through some of my older footage and redoing stuff, and I feel like I'm having a better handle on getting just a good base grade to things. Even going through and redoing my log footage and trying not to use LUTs too much, and so what, just redo it on with levels and the color wheels and stuff. And for the most part, looking at stuff I shot a couple months ago, even I think I'm getting much better at getting a more realistic footage. But I still have that temptation of wanting to like make it look cool, and I need to stop doing that. I just need to get good footage and then worry about making it look cool later. Maybe we're getting good shots to start with, and then more color. Anyways, I'm just kind of ranting about the weather here today. I didn't really do much because of the rain last couple of days. Been kind of being a bit of a homebody and trying to avoid getting too wet. So there's not much really to report other than that. Tomorrow I'm heading in to do some more work though with with one of the drum kits, and tomorrow will be the day of the mythic fabled C-Rig video tour, because I'm moving to my boss's house on Monday. So I have to do it tomorrow because it's the only day I'll have a chance to work with it and really give you guys a proper tour. So I promise tomorrow, C-Rig tour. Catch you guys then.